base. Begin Chof Dalet Amud Aleph, the last line, the two dots. V'amar Rav Chanina, Ani Reisias Rebbe, eyewitness Rebbe, Shegiek Upik V'Nisatesh. He belched, and he yawned, and he sneezed. So this was in the middle of Shemona Esrei. V'rak, and he spit. Umeshamish bebigdoi, and he handled his clothing. So Rashi says that if there was lice, to remove the lice. Avaloi hamisatev, but if his talus fell, he would not pick up his talus to wrap himself with his talus. Ukshimafayik hayamaniach yon al santero. And when he yawned, however, he covered his mouth, he covered his chin, he covered his mouth, so not to have it exposed when he yawned. So Rebbe did all of these things in the middle of Shemona Esrei. Apparently that's not considered disrespectful or a problem in the middle of Shemona Esrei. Mesa, effective Gemara, how can you say that? We learned in the Bryce, Mashmiya Kola Betfilosa, if a person davens out loud, his Mashmiya Kola, he says it in a loud voice. It's like he has little faith. He thinks he has to scream to the Rabbi Shalom, the Rabbi Shalom hears everything. So he's considered Mektanei Amone. That's point number one. And number two is if he lifts his raises his voice in tefillah, if he raises his voice in tefillah, he's considered a Navi Sheker. So the difference, as Rashi points out, Mashmiya Koila and Magbiya is even louder. So this was the derech of the false prophets, that they used to scream to the Rabbeinu Shalom, that for the Rabbeinu Shalom to hear them. Vayikru v'kol gadol, they used to cry during kol gadol. That's like a Navi Sheker. That's the practice of the false prophets. I mean, one davens respectfully to Hashem and is aware that Hashem hears everything. He doesn't have to call out to Hashem, and he should not follow the practices of the Navi Sheker. If he's Megayik, if he belches or he yawns or raises a Megal Seruch, that's considered arrogant. He's haughty. If he sneezes, it's a siman roloi, it's considered a bad sign. And some say it looks like he is an evil person. And if he spits, it's like he spits in front of the king. He's standing in front of the king and he spits. So how do we reconcile Rebbe's practices with this price? So Gemara says, as far as belching and as far as yawning, it's not a kasha. When the Brisa speaks disparagingly about it, it's if he does it willingly. So if he does it willingly, then that's considered to be gasei ruach. Rebbe, it was by accident. It was without a willful act. So that's why it was permitted. So we can resolve Megayik and Payik in that way. However, the Gemara asks, Misatesh kasha, but sneezing, in most cases, sneezing is not voluntary. And so sneezing is always considered, or usually considered, l'ainsai. So how can we resolve Rebbe's practice of sneezing with the brisa that says that it's siman rolling? So amisatesh kasha from the Gemara, amisatesh nami loy kasha. No, it's not a kasha. We can resolve it the following way: kan mil mala, kan mil mata. They're not talking about the same type of sneeze. When Rebbe sneezes, it was mutter. It was sneezing l'ainsai. Then he sneezed. What we're talking misatesh in the Bryce is a euphemism. It doesn't really mean sneezing. It means that he was the mafiach. And so that's considered, if he's misatesh, it's a siman ra. It's a siman ra that he does something embarrassing or something disgraceful and during the tefillah, and something that is considered to be something that's an embarrassment. So that's a siman ra. But Rebbe was sneezing. So that's something that is lainsa, and that's not considered a siman ra. And as we'll see further, it's quite the opposite. The Amar of Zera Hamilsa Ivloili be Rav Hamnuna v'Takili Kukula Talmud. So he said the following manner was Ivloili, the gears on the side is Iboili. I inquired of it. And from Beirav Amnuna, and it was shocking to me. It's something precious to me, like all the learning. He said as follows: if a person sneezes in tefillah, it's a siman yaflo. So, as he spoke out to Meforshim, that he used to sneeze a lot. Perhaps he had allergies or something of that nature, but he used to sneeze a lot. And then he heard this memra that is considered a siman yafalo. It's considered a good sign for him. So it was very precious to him. So why is it considered a siman yafa? Because kashem shoysim lo nachas ruach milmata. By sneezing, a person feels better afterwards. He relieves himself from whatever sinus pressure. Some Meforshim say that it's chazak his body. It's a siman yafala. They do nachas ruach for him. He feels in oilam hazeh. He feels better. It shows that milmalim neshamayim, they're pleased with him, so they give him something which is nachas ruach. And as some of the Forshim speak out, by misatesh milmata, it's the opposite. Since they are giving him something which is an embarrassment, it shows that min Shemaim he's not so merutz, they're not so happy with him in Shemaim, therefore they cause an embarrassment for him in Olam Hazeh. But by sneezing, they give him something of comfort, so it shows that he is merutza, that they're happy with him in Olam Haba and Shemaim. However, how do we resolve the difference between spitting that Rebbe did spit during the tefillah, and the Brisa says that it's like a spitting in front of the king? More answers, because one could spit in the manner of Rav Yehuda. If he was davening in his daven like roik, and he had to spit mavliya b'talisa, so he doesn't spit on the ground. That's where the Brisa says it's considered like spitting for the king. He covers it up with his talis. The talis no, and if he has a very nice talis, and it's something that it's now going to ruin and make it dirty, ruin it. Mavliya b'barkasusa, he's mavliya, he covers it up in his scarf or his turban. Ravina Havikoy after the Ravashi, he was performed behind Ravashi in his Damalei Roig, so he had to spit. Paskalacher, he spit in back of him. Amalei said to him, don't you know this member of Yehuda that you should cover it with your garment, with their scarf? He says, I'm very finicky, I'm an istinus, and for me to put it into my clothing, to cover in my clothing, that it troubles me, that's something that bothers me, because he's an istinus, so that's why he did it in that manner. He did it in back of him. Not in front of him, he did it in back of him. Continuing with what the Brisa mentioned, what we had before, the different mannerisms in tefillah which are considered to be something which are frowned upon. Hamashmiya kol b'tefillah also raised up ketana amana. It says if a person davens out loud, he's considered a person with a lack of faith. It's as if he thinks that the Rabbi Shalom can't hear him unless he speaks out loud. That's only if he has an alternative. He could daven quietly and have proper kavana, and yet he speaks out loud, he davens out loud. There, where it's considered, it's derogatory. But if he can't have the proper kavana, saying it quietly, muter, then it is muter. That's not, because the reason he's doing it is to be able to be mechavan more, to have better kavan. He's not doing it so as if the Rabbi Shalom can't hear. He's doing it to have more kavan. So it's the purpose of tefillah, then it's muter. However, the more qualified said that's only if he's davening by himself. Aval b'tzibur, if he's in the tzibur and there's other people there, also lemitra tzibur, he should not do it because it will interfere and disturb other people, will cause tir to the tzibur, and therefore he should not do it, even if it would help a first kavana. But if he's in the tzibur, he should not say it out loud. Rabbi Abba, he tried to avoid Rabbi Yehuda. Why? He wanted to go up to Eretz Yisrael. And Rabbi Yehuda was against that. Rabbi Yehuda, we're in Gobel, goes Babel, someone who leaves Babel to Eretz Yisrael. He's over with an essay, he's over in an essay. That because the Pasuk says, Shenemar Bavala Yavo Veshama Yu, Adjoin Pakti Oisam Num Hashem. that they will stay in Bovel until I redeem them. So therefore, he said, leaving Bovel to go to Eretz Yisrael, he frowned upon that. Now, even though technically now we're really in the Golus of Remi, not in the Golus of Bovel, but nevertheless, the Pasuk says that the Kalim of the Beis Hamikdash were brought to Bovel, and until they're brought up, one should not leave Bovel to Eretz Yisrael. So, Omar, Ezelesh, Milsa, Beis Vada, let me hear something from the Beis Medrash, and then I'll go. So he tried to avoid him, but in the meantime he said, let me hear something from the Beis Medrash. Also, he heard this, remember, that says a person is davening and he sneezed. So we're talking in this case where it means that he was mefiach. It's nisatesh milmato, mamtin he waits until the odor passes, and then he can resume his tefillah. Some say the following: and he felt the urge to be mefiach. Then he goes in back of him, Dalet Amas, 4 Amas, away from the spot that he was davening, and he's mefiach, and he waits until the odor passes, and then he goes back to his davening. And he says the following. He says the following tefillah, and as Tosfos points out, he says this in the middle of his Shemona Esrei. Ribono shel olam yatzartanu nekavim, you created us with cavities, chalum chalulim, which are hollow, gol v'yadu lefanecha, cherpaseinu klimaseinu b'chayenu. And you know how our busha in our lifetimes, right? And a human being is full, it lives his life full of things, embarrassing things, and full of busha. And after he dies, he is now decomposed, and he's rima v'telea, worms. And then after that, and then he resumes his tefillah from the place that he stopped or he interrupted before, and then he resumes the rest of its tefillah. Omar said, if I only come for this, to hear this alone, it would be sufficient. So a person was sleeping in his talus, he's not clothed, so he had a talus or a blanket covering himself. And he can't remove his head out from under the covers because it's very cold. So he wants to remain covered with the blanket. He makes a separation. He ties the talus tight al savar on his neck, v'kaira krishma. His eyes should not be, the erva, his mouth should not be exposed to his eyes. So he has to make a separation, from his upper body and his lower body. If he can remove his head from under the blanket, that's preferred. If he can't, then he just ties it tight around his neck so that there's a separation from the upper body and lower body, and he is not exposed to his erva. And some say that he has to tie it tight under his chest, that there should be a separation between his lave, his heart, and his erva. The Tanakama, who does not say lave, he says only his head. There's no separation between his heart and the erva, so to speak, his heart is looking at the erva. Our answer is that Tanakama holds no, it's only a problem with his eyes viewing the erva. But Liboy Royvis Erva, the Tanakama holds his mutter. Omarav Huna Amarav is if he's walking on streets which are dirty. And so there is things that are not fit to recite Krishma over there. Maniach Yar Al Piv Krishma, he covers his mouth with his hand and he can recite the Krishma. So that's what Rav Huna said. He says, like a shua, if I heard it directly from Rav Yechan's mouth, still, I would not have accepted this. I would not accept it that he can walk through streets which are dirty and have tzoya and recite Krishma even in this manner where he's covering his mouth. That's one version of the Maisa. Another version is if he's walking on the streets which are not clean, and that he says Krishma. So it says the name of a Rishua ben Levi, according to this version, not Rav Yochanan. Rav Chisda said, if I heard it directly from Rishua ben Levi, I would not have accepted it. Frank the Gemara Umi Amar Rav Huna Hachi. Did Rav Huna say that it is permitted in this manner to cover his mouth and walk through the streets that are dirty? Is it permitted in this manner? Amar Rav Huna Talmud Chacham also lo lamed b'makam ati noifes. A Talmud Chacham is not permitted to walk in to stand in a makam ati noifes where it's not clean. Because the Talmud Chacham is always thinking in Torah. His mind is always in Torah. He's always thinking in Torah. If he walks and stands, if he stands in these dirty streets, he'll be thinking in Torah where in a place which is not clean. So you see over here that Rav Huna himself says it's not permitted. It's not permitted for Divrei Torah. Presumably, Krishma, it's the same halacha. How can he say by Krishma it's mutar? For the Gemara, like kash, it's not a kash. Kan b'aymen, kan b'mahalach. There's a difference between standing and walking. By standing, that's where Rav Huna said he should not stand in such a place. Then that's also, even if he covers his mouth. But when Rav Huna says it's mutar, it's when he walked through. He didn't stay in the place. The issur of being in a place which is not clean is your camp should be kodesh, as the Rishonim speak out, and therefore, in a place where he's standing, it's not permitted. If he's just walking through, that's not considered his machna, that's not considered his place. And therefore, as long as he covers his mouth, Rav Huna says it's permitted. Right, the Gemara, and did Rav Yochanan say that it's permitted to walk through a place that's not clean? In every place a person can think in Divrei Torah, but he can't be thinking in a Divrei Torah in a basic kisei. So Rav Yochanan himself says he cannot be mahar b'Divrei Torah in a basic kisei. The chitema, maybe perhaps you'll answer it in a similar way. Maybe you'll answer it and in the similar way that here where he says it's only if he's standing. How could you say that? He was going behind Rav Yochanan and reciting Krishma. When they got to streets which are not clean, now they were walking here, and nevertheless, when they got to streets which were not clean, he stopped. So he asked Rav Yochanan, he stopped. Where should he go back to? Now that he stopped, where should he resume the Krishma? Rav Yochanan answered, she said, if you pause, if your interval was as long as it takes to recite the entire Krishma, you cannot just resume from where you left off. You have to start from the beginning. So apparently over here, even though they were walking through the streets, but Rav Yochanan held you could not say Krishma. Isn't that a contradiction to Rav Yochanan said earlier? The more answers no. This is what he said to him. According to me, since we're only walking through, I hold you don't have to stop. You cover your mouth, you don't have to stop. But according to you, that you hold that you do have to stop, so you stop. According to you, if you stopped, the interval was as long as it takes to recite the Krishma, you have to go back to the beginning. But in Chanami, Rav Yochanan, she tells us you don't have to stop. Tani Kavasi de Rav Huna, Tani Kavasi de Rav Chisda. We have a brisa supporting both Rav Huna that it is mutar, and a brisa supporting Rav Chisda that it's awesome. Tani Kavasi de Rav Huna Mahalach was Hamatun Ofa. If he's walking the streets which are not clean, you cover your mouth, you recite Krishma. He should not recite the Krishma. It's a riot to Rav Chisda. If he was reciting it twice, he has to stop. If he shouldn't start. If he did, he must stop. If he didn't, what are the consequences if he didn't stop? That they'll have mishpatim that they will not have life with them, meaning they're doing the mitzvah, they're thinking they're doing the mitzvah, but they will not have life with this because they're doing it in an improper way. They're reciting Krishma in Mavus Mitunofas, Ravasi Yomer from a different source, so they are bring the Averis on them, with ropes which are weak. So the way Rashi speaks out, ropes which are not strong, and can be broken. Here too, they, even with speaking, even without doing a ma'aseh, they just spoke. Something which is, compared to an action, is weaker, is lesser. He's still punished for bringing upon himself, even though he's doing the mitzvah, and he's doing, even dibur, he's doing speaking in Krishma in a place which is not clean, he brings upon himself this avera and this punishment. Is disgracing the word of Hashem. The imposing maschara, if he did stop, what is his reward? With this matter, as Rashi speaks out, with this being careful with your dibur, you will have arichas yomim.